Hello and welcome to this week's podcast. I'm Mod Sky and I'm here today with Mod Wilson, and today we're going to be talking about the Heroes Welcome quest. Mod Wilson, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hello, I'm Mod Wilson. I'm a senior content developer and the developer of the Heroes Welcome quest.
Perfect. So we're really excited about this quest, the newest one out this week. Could you tell me a bit about the quest? What happens in the quest?
Well, we're going to need the spoiler alert siren for a moment. During the quest, you meet up with V. You help welcome him back to the world through his people, the Fremenics and the Moon Clan, and you solve a dispute between them. Then V arrives, and things kind of go wrong with his arrival and his powers. And at this point, the Dragonkin turn up, and V is killed by them. And you go on a roaring rampage of revenge to deal with them and the problems that have been caused by the method that they use to kill V.
Tell me about the requirements for the quest.
In order to do the quest, you need to have completed the Loon Diplomacy quest. There's also requirements in smithing, mining, divination, and slayer. And there's also Barbarian Training.
Can you give me a bit more information about the Barbarian Training requirement for the quest?
Well, you need to go down to the Ancient Caverns, which is something that you unlock whilst doing the Barbarian Training. We initially decided to start it with you just go down there if you're at the right stage in the training to be able to get access to the cavern. We decided to move it up to a full unlock of the whole skills simply because it made a lot more sense for the high-level requirements of the quest.
Perfect. Spoiler alert. So a lot of players are slightly upset about the early demise of V's character. Can we talk a bit more about this decision, why you've decided to kill him?
Well, if people can remember back to the big podcast about how we do quests and how we design them and the rest of it, occasionally we get handed down from on high a decision about, say for instance, we need a quest that unlocks bacon, or we need a quest that unlocks the Elf City. In this case, it was decided we were going to be doing a Dragonkin-related quest. There were a number of pitches as to which ones we were going to do. I can't obviously go into the ones that didn't win because we're going to be using them later. But the one that ended up going ahead was it was going to involve Dragonkin, and V was going to die during that quest. So I knew that this was going to be controversial from the start, so I was having a word with the various people who were pitching this, and we came up with decision after decision. There were a lot of options that we came up with and we discarded. Like, you would go on a huge long quest with V and he would die at the very end, and there would be a follow-on quest where you went up against the Dragonkin, right the way to the opposite end of you'd start the quest by V staggers out of a portal and keels over dead. We decided that this was kind of like the best balance, because if he dies at the end, then yes, you've got to know him a lot better, you've had your time with him, your little adventures and the rest of it, but it's going to feel a lot worse when he just dies, because he had to die as part of the quest for lore requirements later on down the road. And if you don't get to know him, again, there's kind of that potential wasted there. We also wanted the player to have a lot more agency in getting revenge. If there was a follow-on quest, then you'd have to wait until we'd written it before you even get to go out and kill the Dragonkin responsible. So we feel we got the best balance. And given the response on the forums, a lot of people are complaining, but they're complaining because they didn't get to spend time with V, who they liked. They enjoyed this character, they enjoyed his characterization. So I think we hit kind of the right balance there, which was, like I say, what we were aiming for.
Because at the end of the quest, you create a emissary for V. Mm-hmm. Why was that decision made to create this emissary?
We knew that players would be upset about the death of V. We also wanted to include an emissary. However he died throughout the quest, we wanted there to be an emissary because people do like being able to show their alignment to the different gods. Unfortunately, with him being dead, it's a good chance that won't be like a main faction within a world event, but people can still show their allegiance to V and his ideals that way.
And for the players at home that don't know, who are the Dragonkin? Can you give us a bit more information about them? Because they are the main culprits for V's demise, so what more can you tell us about them?
The Dragonkin are a race of creatures who have been bound to the Stone of Jas by Jas. At this stage, what they were before has all been kind of washed away by the curse of the stone and the false users. Spoiler alert. Again, this covers like a number of quests that players might not have done. You basically learn that the gods drain energy out of the Stone of Jas in order to gain their amazing powers and to ascend to godhood in some cases. When they do that, this hurts the Dragonkin and also empowers them. So they are like watchdogs, they are like an alarm system, and they are really angry and want to kill the false users because they cause them continuous agonizing pain. And there's sort of two factions between them. There's the Necrocites, who are just driven by rage and anger and want to kill all of the false users as quickly as possible. And then there's the Dactyl, who want to kill all of the false users, but in a more sort of intellectual, they want to find out how can they do this, and in fact, can they negate the curse through some other means that would then allow them to kill the false users without suffering from its effects.
So the whole quest builds up to this massive boss fight at the end. There's been a lot of feedback on the forums on how important movement is in the fight. Do you have any comments to the feedback from the forums?
I've seen a bunch of these threads, and effectively both sides are kind of right in that, yes, a lot of our old bosses are, you stand there and you wail on them until one or the other dies. And we do want to get away from this. We are doing our best to get away from this. Obviously, it's a little bit tricky with our engine. We do take time to sort of like investigate, making sure that it feels right. And I'm quite happy with the way that it's turned out in the end. I mean, sort of like we've got things in like its charging mechanics. We've got you running around as much as possible. We've got it running around as much as possible. And, you know, it makes for an exhilarating and quite exciting experience. And most players seem to agree.
There's been some feedback on the forums about post-quest dialogue. Why haven't we included any for this quest?
The quest was very lore-heavy in its just quest dialogue, and we started to run out of space and time for including this, which is one consideration. We started out with like a bunch of ideas as to where we would put the extra dialogue on Zaros, on Sliske, on various Fremennik and Moon Clan characters, and all these kind of places. And we suddenly realised that in order to properly do it justice, it would balloon out across like half of the world. So we ended up sort of like trimming it down to this person and that person, and then in the end, when we just weighed in with all of the stuff that we had, it was just too much to be able to add that extra stuff in at the end. And we've covered basically a lot of lore within the quest, and there's some post-quest lore drops, the journals from the adamant dragons in the lair. And there's a lot of stuff on V when you talk to him, and there's a lot of stuff just on all the characters throughout the whole thing. We've got as much lore in there as we could pack in.
Sounds great. Finally, everybody loves rewards from quests. Tell me about the rewards that players can expect to receive.
Well, for this quest, there's the experience in the skills that you use, as is usual with most quests. There's also access to a number of areas that you go to throughout the quest. Spoiler alert. Specifically, you get to access some adamant dragons, which are left in the Dragonkin's lair in the ancient caverns. You can also go back to the Abomination Cave and refight the Abomination for some drops, which I'll talk about in a second. And you can also mine some Baynor there. The Abomination itself, when you refight it, you can get the Dragon Javelin, an offhand Dragon Javelin, and it's got a level 75 cape as an extremely rare drop, which I've seen a few people on the forum say that they've sold for several million so far on the couple that have got into game so far. So there's all of that. And you will also unlock the ability to produce more runes. I think it's 5% more runes when you runecraft them.
Gotta love those runes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it for this week. Thanks, Mod Wilson, for joining me.
No problem.
Bye.
Bye.